So let's pick up. Smurfit Kappa is raising its dividend by 20% after 2016 earnings grew despite what the company described as significant headwinds. Tony Smurfit is with us, the CEO of Smurfit Kappa. Tony, good morning to you and welcome.
Good morning, Jeff. How are you?
Just good, thanks. Pull out the headlines for us on this then. You know, there are a couple of cautious lines in the statement.
Mm-hmm.
What does that actually mean in terms of prospects for full year 2017?
I think 2017 is looking reasonably good at the moment. I think that when you look at what happened in 2016, we had very significant headwinds in our raw material, which is waste paper. That cost us about 70 million during the year. Also, currencies moved against us for about 53 million. So both of those were significant headwinds for us, and despite that, we came through with a record profit. So if you take those aside and you look at the amount of money that we've invested in our business this year, which is circa 500 million, you know, that flow through and that benefit should be felt as we go forward into 2017 and beyond. So
just on this, the pricing issue, this is interesting. I mean, we are starting to see raw materials costs rising. How able are you just to pass that straight down the line to the customer?
It's never easy to pass raw material price increases through, but I mean, we are seeing a very strong escalation in our waste paper prices, and that needs to go into paper and then ultimately into boxes. And we're in the marketplace right now announcing increases in paper, and obviously the follow through to that will be into boxes, which will have to happen because at the end of the day, paper is the largest element of cost in a box.
And how sticky do you think that pricing can be? I mean, are the clients turning around and saying, come off it, Tony? You know, you're not going to put the prices up on us again here.
Well,
can you make them hold?
We've had a deflationary a period of time for a long period. So, you know, in essence, we have been, you know, working very hard to give our customers great value and all the stuff that we do, innovation, to give them better value in their own supply chain. So that's what has worked for us, and hence the reason why we've been able to deliver continually over the years.
It's got to be a huge growth opportunity, innovative packaging. We've had so many discussions about companies that are trying to put, you know, wine bottles into packages that you can put into a letterbox, to the amount of packages we all get delivered day in, day out by a number of different websites. It must be a growth area, but how competitive is it at this point? What are you seeing in the space?
I think packaging in general is competitive. The only way you can really differentiate yourself is through innovation. So, you know, you've got to be good in the supply chain, you've got to be good at designing the box, you've got to help. You know, the biggest trend right now is the merchandising trend, Karen, for packaging. I mean, when you are going into your shop, you know, right in the olden days, you used to actually decant the box and put it on the shelf. They don't have time for that anymore, so they just put the package on the shelf. And at that moment of truth, the package sells the product. So hence the reason why we got much more white packaging, much better printing on boxes. So that's really helping sell the product. So we're really a merchandising medium now.
So you bring a huge amount of value to a company selling its product, but I'm guessing they want that at a very cheap price.
Yeah, but we also want to make some money too. So I mean, it's in both parties' interest that we are able to continue to offer them the service. So in essence, most companies believe and understand that we need to exist.
You operate in 34 countries. Where is the greatest opportunity at this point based on manufacturing, innovation coming to market, demand stories? Where are you still seeing some growth based on geographies?
Most of the geographies we saw last year grew. I mean, you know, actually we saw some very strong growth in countries like Mexico, Colombia. Eastern Europe continues to grow, you know, much more than we would have anticipated. So most countries are growing, and I think that's really positive.
So one of those countries has to change, doesn't it? I mean, when you say Mexico, and most people sit back and say, well, that business model is fundamentally going to change under Donald Trump, isn't it?
Well, I think it's early days. I think if you look at Mexico itself, there's 120 million people. You know, put that in context, it's double the size of the UK. You know, so it's a very important own market. We grew at 7% there in the fourth quarter, despite all the noise about Donald Trump. You know, we have to wait and see what happens. I mean, most of the products, or many of the products that Mexico exports to the US are food and food related. So, you know, I'm not sure that the Mexicans or the Americans will want to stop that. I mean, it's part of their life. We talked about avocados for the Super Bowl. You know, they don't have avocados for the Super Bowl, there's no guacamole.
Which would be a total disaster, wouldn't it?
Would be a total disaster.
I can hear lots of Americans immediately complaining about that. So when it comes to Trump, what are you in a kind of wait and see mode let's see what he does rather than what he says, because a lot of people are concerned second half of the year is going to look different, because that's when the trade wars begin and that's when we see the slowdown in business activity that obviously wouldn't be great for a packaging company.
Jeff, I mean, you know, Donald Trump is a Republican. The Republican Congress is pro-trade, or they should be pro-trade. Republicans are generally pro-trade. Normally we should be having this conversation about the Democrats. So it's a kind of oxymoronic, if you will. I mean, I would say that, you know, the idea of trade wars has been proven to be really bad. I mean, the Smoot-Hawley Act in the 30s showed that the whole thing just doesn't work. So I would hope that reason will prevail and we won't see a trade war, but we'll wait and see.
And since we saw you last, I mean, obviously we've come a long way down the road on the Brexit story, with you being sort of just over the water. Obviously you'll be watching things closely here in the UK. How better or worse do you feel about the progress of Brexit over the next 18 months, given what we've seen in the UK Parliament and what Theresa May's now said?
Well, it's going to happen, isn't it? So we have to, I mean, we in our own company have dealt with many things in the past, so we'll just have to deal with it. I mean, we have a very strong UK business, UK-centric business. That is going to help the exports, and if there are more creation of jobs in the UK, that's going to help the business, assuming they can get a reasonable trade deal. We just have to wait and see. I think the biggest issue for us in Ireland is obviously the border and how it impacts the border and free movement of people across that border, and that's more a political issue rather than a business issue.
I think we've had enough reassurance on that, though, don't we? Don't you? I mean,
let's wait and see. I'm sure it will be okay, but you know, I mean, I think that it's not in anyone's interest that would be interrupted.
Excellent. Good to see you, Tony. Thanks very much for coming in. I don't know many CEOs who'd come on and quote the Smoot-Hawley Act, but
there you go.
Kudos to you. Tony Smurfit, CEO of Smurfit Kappa.